Okay, so I'll have to give you the context for a manifesto for information and communication studies right there. Now, does anybody know what this is? No, it's not a server. It's actually the supercomputer. Yes, this is IBM's Summit. It's the most powerful supercomputer in the world today, supposedly, okay? It's the most powerful supercomputer built by IBM. Actually, these lines of servers, they stretch as far as a basketball court. Some describe it that the entire thing could fit into a football field, but, well, Bobby would know that a lesser exaggeration would be a basketball court. Yes, and how about this one? What is this? This is not a supercomputer. It's called a quantum computer. Okay. While supercomputers operate with, you know, the two states that are called a bit, yeah, zeros and ones. Quantum computers, they operate with qubits. Quantum mechanics, where you have what they call entanglements and superimpositions. So they could do many operations at any one time. Okay. Now, Google claims that they have this working quantum computer called Sycamore, although most of the time it's only 24 of its 25 processors are operating. Okay. The supercomputer versus the quantum computer. Now, there was an event barely 3 months ago, an event that is known as quantum supremacy. What happened? Now, the information scientists in this room would know, perhaps Angelo, perhaps Peter, King. Yeah. Quantum supremacy is a condition when it is proven that quantum computers would outperform a supercomputer. The size of that quantum computer is similar to your double door refrigerator, yeah, compared to your the very large supercomputer. Now, this was announced in the journal Nature on the 23rd of October, 2019. How did the Sycamore, or how much did the Sycamore outperform the Summit? Yeah. A computation that would take the Summit, well, this is the claim in the paper, 10,000 years, was solved by Sycamore in 3 minutes and 20 seconds, or 200 seconds. Okay. Now, of course, we have been desensitized to these developments. You know, the only time we get excited about new technologies there is when there's a new iPhone model, right? And this thing went by without much, fanfare, except, of course, from the computer scientists in the room. But what are the implications of this? What are the implications of this for information science, for communication science, for the social sciences, for the cognitive sciences? Okay. Now, Summit operates at peak performance 200 petaflops. Flops means floating point operations per second. Okay. A peta is 1 quadrillion. That would be 1, add 16 zeros. Okay, add 16 zeros to 1, that would be 1 quadrillion or 1 peta. So 1 quadrillion floating point operations could be done simultaneously. That's how fast it is. But this is the summit computer, the one which has been outperformed, you know, by a quantum computer. Okay. Now, I'm not so sure about this figure, Sue, since this is your area. The human brain is estimated to operate at 1,000 petaflops. Now, if an operation that would take the summit 10,000 years could be done in 200 seconds, does this mean that the quantum computer has already outperformed the human brain by so many times? Well, of course, let us revisit Sue's presentation earlier, that every time the brain operates, it changes, right? It changes. Could we say the same things about supercomputers? No, of course not. Of course, it doesn't change. The dimensions stay the same. It makes use of the same circuits. But what about quantum computers? Sycamore, for instance, how many petaflops does it operate at? Whether or not there will come a time when such a thing would happen, when a quantum computer would outperform us, don't you think that this is one of the things that we need to address at this point, you know, as academic institutions, as colleges, as faculties, as departments, as scientists? Well, this is one of the contexts of my talk. And although I call it technological, it goes beyond technology, right? FICS is unique among UP constituent units, as well as other national and international universities, because of the clustering of computer science, information systems, multimedia arts, and communication science under one faculty, under one college. Name an institution in the Philippines that has all of these: communication, computer science, in one academic unit. No? Or abroad, there was a time, I understand, that the Nanyang Technological University has tried to do it, but if I'm not mistaken, today their journalism and communication departments are in a different faculty now. I also understand that Bowling Green University in the US, they're offering, their communication school is now offering digital journalism, if there's such a thing. No, but we are unique in this sense. And, well, this development was serendipitous, or at best intuitive. Some of the senior faculty members then anticipated the convergence or appreciated the historical ties between these domains. See, it's very easily forgotten by the communication students among us, or the communication faculty members among us, that the term bit was first introduced into the scientific literature by a communication paper, and that was the mathematical theory of communication by Shannon and Weaver, which was published in 1948. That was the time that the term bit or binary digit was first mentioned. And we believe that inadvertently, this is an emerging model for both information science and communication arts. Okay? We feel that the faculty should capitalize on its innovative beginnings, its academic agility, since we could have our foothold in both areas, and all the affordances attendant to open and distance learning. But first, it will have to gain a solid academic foothold. Yeah? And is there room within the disciplinal space for this? Okay? This is my institutional and disciplinal context. And unfortunately, well, there ought to be room because of another event that happened not barely a month ago. 31 December 2019, our guests from the UP Open University, what happened then? Joanne, what happened the last day of the year? Okay. Well, this day did not only usher in the new year, it also brought our attention to a system breach that unfortunately I could not describe at the moment. Up till now, we are still reeling from the effects of this breach. Okay, now being the pioneering, or we would like to think premier online university in this part of the world, you could say that it's only a matter of time. It's a matter of course. No, our systems, hackers have been attempting to breach our system for so long, but finally they succeeded on that day. Yeah. But is it really a matter of time? Is it really a matter of course? Why do we expect that something like this could happen? Are we resigned to the fact that or coders, for instance, developers, would be doing something like this? Aren't we doing a great disservice to the discipline by considering that these behaviors are expected? Does it have anything to do in how we teach our coders, our programmers, our system designers? What is it in information science or information per se that we have not considered, that we are open to such behavior? So you see, we're taking this very seriously and very personally also. Okay. Is it because of the lack of understanding of information science or communication, for that matter, that these things are happening? Remember Cambridge Analytica. Okay? And those of you who have seen the documentary, The Great Hack, I took this quote out from the former chief operating officer of Cambridge Analytica. The technology, meaning social media or this information and communication, new media is going on unabated and will continue to do so even when Cambridge Analytica is gone. Because it's moving so fast and people don't really understand it, there is always going to be a Cambridge Analytica. It's also resigned to the fact, no? It's just a matter of course. It's just a matter of time. But should it really be such? Politics. The strategist for presidential candidate McCain saying this about how Facebook is now being used. Okay. What Facebook does is to obliterate the ability to tell the lie from the truth, where what is real, what is false is not discernible and not knowable. And the consequences of that is frightening at best. To think about a recent study made a distinction between, it actually found that Facebook users don't really care whether something is not factual, okay, whether something is factual or not. Are information and communication technologies ushering in the post-truth era? Are we responsible for the post-truth era? This is the social context of the talk. Okay, now part two, from utopia to dystopia. I am listing here some, and I say some, of these, we could call it pathologies of information and communication. Digital overload, distraction, and dementia because of our use of the mobile phone, our dependence on it. We are 24 hours a day plagued by messages that do not really, they matter little. It distracts our work. And some say that if that it does things for us, it does things for us that should be done by the neurons in our brain. If we do not exercise our brain, then it would lead to dementia. There's the intrinsic bias of machine learning that we need to address. Okay, the black, gray, and white hats, hackers. Digital disinformation and diversion. Our colleagues from De La Salle University. Anyone here from La Salle? Yes, right. Okay, Cabañas et al. Your professors are doing a lot of spade work in this area. It is from them that we borrow the phrase, the Philippines as patient zero of digital disinformation in the way we use textbook. This phrase also comes from them, democratization of disinformation. The commodification of the user. Our data are being sold to establishments that would want to micro-target us, right, in their advertising campaigns or in their social mobilization campaigns. And the weaponization of information and communication, that, of course, is a fact of life. Now, there are institutions such as the University of Michigan Center for Social Media and Responsibility of the School of Information, which, you see, their approach to the matter is develop policies, study behaviors. I don't think there is enough investigations or inquiries into the root causes of this. And this is what we intend to fill, the need that we need to fill. Digital responsibility, digital accountability is not being taught in our curricula. We teach ethics, yes, ethics in our computer science program, but not the framework that would guide these ethics. The moral and ethical frameworks, I don't think this has even been devised yet. There is no direct links between information communication and cognition in our information science courses. Okay. What is the essential nature of information? Have we actually defined this? Have we actually done studies on this? Okay. Yes. And I'm moving on to part 3. Well, this is what I would like to address at the moment, the nature of information and communication. Now, yes, information has often been described. Well, when I was teaching this during the 70s and the 80s, my students would either be communication students or library science students, and instead of defining what information really is, I would say that, well, it is measured by a bit. A bit being, it's combining 2 words, binary digit. And 1 bit is equivalent to 1 negative uncertainty. Okay? So it's a certainty, 1 negative uncertainty. If it's a certainty, if it makes you sure about one thing, then that's 1 bit of information. Right? Male, female, black or white, married, single. Yeah. Communication is often thought of merely as a human or as a social science. Okay, those are the parameters that are given. Now let's see. Carol Cadwell-Yatter, did I pronounce it correctly? She is our friends from UK would be familiar with her as the Guardian journalist who began the expose on Cambridge Analytica. And in a TED Talk, this is what she said, addressing the giants of Silicon Valley, and that would be Zuckerberg, Gates, who else? Well, what's the acronym nowadays? Is it FANG? Yeah? Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, right? Addressing them, she said in that TED Talk, you set out to connect people, and you are refusing to acknowledge that the same technology is now driving us apart. What you don't seem to understand that this is bigger than you, and this is bigger than any one of us. Maybe the way we see information and communication is a bit fragmented, or at the basic unit, if I may say. Okay. And this is where autopoiesis comes in. Now, autopoiesis is what we would want to use as a theoretical buttress for the Faculty of Information and Communication Studies. Autopoiesis was introduced by Maturama and Varela in the 70s, Diego, or was it the 80s? As both of whom are biologists. They were actually studying organisms or cells. It is the process of self-creation, self-production, and self-maintenance in organisms, among organisms, or among cells. How do organisms self-create, self-produce, self-maintain? And it is driven by cognition. And that is information and communication. So we would like to propose that if we could adopt this as a theoretical buttress, our faculty's core function is to study how information and communication supports life. Okay, how can computer science support life? How can multimedia, how can communication, how does information system support life? This is consistent with information science, human-machine interfaces, cybernetic systems theory. These are some of the courses that we're offering at the moment: environmental communication, knowledge management, networking, communities, and even space research. Okay. And this, we feel, supports our previous articulations on what we are and what we stand for as a faculty. I will just give you some of the programs: instruction, data science, esports, public service, QA algorithms and systems for open and distance learning. We're planning to put up an autopoiesis systems lab to be headed by Dr. Diego Maranan, where we will take up immersive technologies by Bobby Figueroa, artificial intelligence, multimedia portfolios, networking research, among other things. But let me move on now to another concept of information that may be a bit contentious. And this comes from the American physicist John Archibald Wheeler, or whom some of you know, coined the term black hole. If you're watching Netflix recently, there's a documentary on, I'm not so sure, it's a documentary series called Explained, where he appears in barely a second footage where he says, what we saw was a black hole. It was the first time that the term black hole was used. I think they were looking at the phenomenon where the gravity is so, or matter is so, what? How do you describe it? Dense, that gravity absorbs everything around it, including light. Now, there is another quote that he is known for, but before presenting that quote, let me show you the idea behind that quote. Yeah, or that quotation. Reality is made up of information. Okay? Going back again, revisiting Sue's what is reality question, where people cannot agree. What is reality? Well, the materialist would say, well, reality is matter, right? And then after Einstein, reality is energy. Okay? What is energy? What is matter? At the quantum level, what is matter? At the quantum level, what is reality? Okay? At the quantum level, what is energy? And his answer to that is information. Imagine all that you're seeing right now is information. Now, how does he explain it? Okay, now we're familiar with two worlds, at least two worlds right now. We are intimately familiar with two worlds. One is this everyday world where we live in, and the other one is the virtual world, right? Yeah, where we live in most of the time. The virtual world, agree with me or not, is made up of zeros and ones, right? It was developed by developers, by coders. This world is made up of zeros and ones, symbols that, mean something. They mean something, and that's, I believe, is what he meant. I hate to misrepresent his thought, but it appears that, okay, now the reasoning goes this way. Information is made up of symbols with meanings. Okay. Now, is there a set of symbols that represent themselves? Well, it's easy. Geometrically, a square represents a square, right? Or a triangle represents a triangle. But for instance, the atoms in my nail are atoms, and it could also be a symbol for what an atom is. Okay? Are there symbols that represent themselves? Now, if there is such a thing, then this is the quotation that I was referring to. It is bit. It meaning things. It are made up of bits. Although, of course, this could be a quantum bit instead of your conventional classical 0 and 1 combination. Okay, and I understand that more and more quantum physicists are adopting this view that reality is indeed made up of information. It is, similar to Plato's concept, of course, that everything is made up of ideas, no? There's no such thing as matter. Everything is ideas, just ideas. Okay? But if they are ideas, or if reality is made of information, which means something, then whose ideas is it? Okay, good. Thank you. Now I'll leave you with that question. Part 4. This is our manifesto. Last 3 slides, Mihaela. We believe in the essential nature of information and communication and the significant role these play in our evolution as a species and in the entire scheme of things. We believe that information and communication lead to cognition within living systems and thus creates, sustains, and generates life. We believe that information determines our realities and communication is a critical function among all living systems at all levels. We believe that there is more to information and communication literacy than the ability to make use of them, to utilize them. That this concept of information literacy extends to the understanding of how these shape our past, present, and future. In other words, our very existence. We believe that information and communication bring power to the user and that this power should be used responsibly and conscientiously. We believe in the moral, ethical, and productive use and application of information and communication strategies, techniques, and technologies. We declare that understanding and explaining the essential nature of information and communication and their implications on our economic, social, and cultural lives are significant academic pursuits and personal endeavors. That we declare that this knowledge should be scientifically arrived at, rigorously, periodically validated, and appropriately shared. We affirm that this faculty will serve as a platform for generating this knowledge through research, promoting it through instruction, and applying it through policy formulation and program planning. That this faculty will design and develop appropriate technology solutions and applications guided this knowledge. I would like to thank the University of Plymouth, the Cognovo Foundation, and Curiosity for making this, Seeds, yes, Seeds, for making all this possible. Thank you very much.